How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good day. And today we're going to be reviewing one of the most anticipated tank revamps, to be fair. And I think it's probably the most well received by the community. I haven't really played a lot of Paladin and BFA because I haven't really liked the playstyle of it. But I'm basically just going to be going over the changes that the class is going to be receiving. If I have any opinions at all, like as to where things might work well, I'll probably express them. But again, I'm not an avid Paladin player, so I'll probably leave that to the players that have actually, trial and errored the class. But yeah, we're just going to run through all the changes and some of the stuff that they're getting back and the abilities that they're gaining. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. So one of the many things that people are actually excited to see return to the game are the auras. So the auras as they stand are Crusader Aura, which increases the mounted speed by 20% for all party and raid members within 40 yards. Devotion Aura, which is basically going to make you a sought after raid class, because who's going to say no to 3% decreased damage? So, that's really good. So it's 3% damage reduction to everybody in the raid. So whether you're a tank, healer, or a rep paladin, you're going to be bringing that much utility where we can't really afford to miss out on paladins. Not that the group ever really goes without having paladins, to be fair, but it just makes them that much more usable. And with the buffs that they're actually receiving and the gameplay changes that they're actually receiving in this expansion, I believe he's going to make them one of the strongest tanks up there with Brewmasters and Blood Death Knights, to be completely honest. So yeah, moving on from Devotion Aura, we then have Retribution Aura, which has a bit of a stigma surrounding it at the minute because it does seem a bit counterproductive. Because if you read the tooltip, it says, when any party or raid member within 40 yards dies, you gain Avenging Wrath for 8 seconds. Like, nobody's going to complain at gaining Avenging Wrath for 8 seconds, right? But it's the cost of it. Like, somebody has to die in order for you to get that DPS increase. It kind of just seems counterproductive because although people do die in raid encounters, and I do understand that, or even in Mythic Plus and PvP, it probably will be more of a niche in PvP, to be fair, just for the Avenging Wrath procs. But it just seems, I don't know, I'm not keen on the way that it's supposed to work right now, because for somebody to die, I know it's common, but it's not really something you really have that much time to plan for either. In a raid, something usually goes wrong really quickly and somebody dies. So to actually be able to prepare for somebody to die is a whole other thing in itself. I think they could tweak how this works and maybe even bring the Avenging Wrath proc down a little bit. But for somebody to be dying, it's just not worth it, in my opinion. Like, you don't want to plan people dying, although it has happened in some World First races. It depends how much damage Paladins can actually put out. So after that one, we then receive Concentration Aura. This comes at level 52, and basically interrupts and silence effects on party and raid members within 40 yards have a 30% shorter tick time on them. So it's on you for 30% less time than it would be if you didn't have this aura on. So another really nice ability or aura to be able to bring to a raid. So if you've got a Devotion Aura and a Concentration Aura on, it's two good raid utilities right there. So with these coming back, I think it's making Paladin as a class in general that much more viable for raids because of the toolkit that they bring. But like I said before, the changes that are being made to the tank spec specifically are absolutely fantastic. So if we'll take a look at some of them abilities and how they work. So before we actually move into the new abilities or the abilities that are coming back, it's important to note that Paladins won't be playing the same as they did in BFA, because we're actually going back to an old system, which is Holy Power, which is, if you're a veteran player, you'll remember from Cataclysm, you're kind of builder and spenders. So if anyone wasn't around in Cataclysm and isn't a complete dinosaur in the game, we'll just kind of explain it. So Holy Power is going to be used mainly to pop your mitigation spells, which is Shield of the Righteous, or your healing spells, which are, well, I say spells, it's a spell, Word of Glory. Okay, so what happens here is you have your generators, which for a prop paladin, it's going to be primarily your Blessed Hammer, your Avenger's Shield, and when you get to level 58, your Hammer of Wrath can also build the Holy Power. So either when you've got your cooldown, which is basically Avenging Wrath going, or if the target's below 20% health while you're leveling. So Basically, you can either use 3 of the 5 to pop a Shield of the Righteous, which is going to be mitigation, which is a change that I'm actually really happy about, because I felt like the charges system for this ability in BFA, was, it just kind of left the class lacking. It kind of just left it vulnerable a lot of the time, whereas this gives it a much more of a skill cap to the point where you can actually plan when you're going to use it and what to spend your holy power on. So you can't just pop both of them. So this heal here, Word of Glory, is going to be replacing, I just call it Glimmer of Light because I was never really that clued up on the Paladin's abilities in BFA, so I'm just going to say that. And when we actually go into it, there's a lot of synergy between the heals and the actual DPS rotation itself for the prop Paladin. So before we jump into that, let's just go through some of the abilities that they're getting back. So Blessing of Sacrifice, which is basically a 30% damage reduction to the targeted player. So in a raid, if something goes tits up or something while you're in a mythic and you're not quite where you need to be, or you need to taunt something else, or somebody, your other tank is going to take a little bit too much damage, you can kind of damage share there, because not only do you kind of reduce the damage taken by 30, you sort of share the damage, so you take 75% of the damage that's prevented. So overall, not a bad cooldown, happy to see it. So we're also getting Hammer of Wrath, which, as we said before, is our 20%, like below 20% executability, or when you've got your Avenging Wrath up past level 58, you can cast it and it generates holy power for you. So it's a nice little cooldown to be able to use, especially during your DPS windows. We're also seeing Turn Evil, which basically the power of the light compels undead, aberrations, or demons targets to flee for up to 40 seconds, which I don't know. It depends how it works and if they run too far and if they have a chance of pulling other adds. If they just kind of, stay in the area, I won't mind too much, but I don't see it having a major use at all. It's kind of like a classic ability. Not everyone uses all their abilities in classic. So then we move towards Word of Glory, which is you heal, like we said, costs 3 holy power, and you can generate up to 5 holy power as well. So you could save up, like say if you really needed a heal. Sense Undead is also now a thing, and I can only see that really being relevant this expansion, unless we have like a really death-themed expansion afterwards with Sylvanas and another cinematic once again. For God's sake, Blizzard just changed the record. So just to give you a rough idea of how like the building and spending actually takes place. So as you can see, I'm using my Blessed Hammer to actually build up my points, as well as my Avenger's Shield. So you can see that my heal's flashing there because it's ready to be used. I've got 5 charges, but another one of the beautiful things about this spec is that even if you're building and spending on the different things, you also have the ability that comes in the toolkit now, which is called Shining Light, which basically means the judgment reduces the cost of your next Word of Glory by 1. So this actually stacks. So if I was to cast, say, 2 judgments at this target here, you'll see that I need 2 less to actually be able to cast, so that when I do, there we go, I can actually cast it while I've got 1 stack. And it also means that if you're maxed up and you use a judgment wisely, then you can actually make it so that you can get both of these abilities off at the same time without actually having any downtime. But again, it's just going to be one of them things where you got to get used to building and spending, but that's just a rough guide on how this class actually works. So now that we've had the really budget guide to Paladins if you bought it off wish.com, I may as well go through the talents now. So if we take a quick look at them, read out. Shield of the Righteous increase your strength and stamina by 2% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Now in BFA, this was just a 75 increase to your block chance, but now it's not. It's been changed. Don't see it replacing Blessed Hammer. So yeah, that's the first change to the talent tree. First Avenger's Shield now hits 2 additional targets and grants you an Absorb Shield for 100% of the damage it deals. So that's, I'd say, a better overall thing to have, especially coming into like Mythic Pluses and stuff like that. So when you know there's going to be a lot of ads and you can't really afford to be taking that damage on certain weeks. So rather than having a 50% increased damage and a chance to proc Grand Crusader, it's kind of just, it is what it is. You get a damage shield absorb, and it can start you off quite strong, because sometimes as a paladin you might be starting off quite weak because you need a bit of time to get your mitigations flowing. So That could be a really good alternative to that. Crusader Judgment, which I'm running, so Judgment now has 2 charges. Grand Crusader now also grants a charge of Judgment, and I think that really synergizes well. And I think it's kind of just a better option, really, especially for raiding, because you just kind of want to be able to keep your mitigation and your heals rolling as frequently as possible, I imagine. So, yeah. Moving on. Bastionamite's been replaced with Moment of Glory, and all this is, it resets the cooldown of your Avenger's Shield. Your next 3 Avenging Shields have no cooldown and deal 20% additional damage. Again, it could be good for Mythic Plus, but I'll have to see more when we get there to test it out and actually go for myself. But for now, I'm probably going to run Crusader's Judgment as my kind of raider go-to be fair. Okay, so moving on from that very controversial row, in my opinion, we're moving on to Fist of Justice. Each holy power spent reduces the remaining cooldown on Hammer of Justice by 2 seconds. So this is really nice. You've got Repentance there that hasn't changed, and Blinding Light. I don't really like Blinding Light all that much, to be fair, but yeah, Fist of Justice, I like this change a fair amount. So yeah, Retribution Aura has actually been removed and replaced with Unbreakable Spirit. So this reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield and Defender and Lay on Hands by 30%. Can be a really good cooldown. This could also be a good cooldown if you had to plan for something where you know somebody's going to take heavy amounts of magic damage. But Unbreakable Spirit's probably going to be my go-to there, to be fair, because I think that sounds really solid as a talent option. So we're actually moving on to a row of completely fresh talents now. At this point, we have Divine Purpose, Holy Avenger, and Seraphim. Divine Purpose, I think, is going to be the main one that I use in the next patch. The other 2 are quite nice, but I just feel like this is going to have more ability, more usability, and I think it's just going to allow me to maintain my tank a lot better during Mythic raids. So Divine Purpose, Holy Power, and abilities have a 15% chance to make your next Holy Power ability free and deal 20% increased damage and healing, so that can be really nice if you're kind of in a situation where you're in trouble. But on the flip side of the coin, it could also proc when you don't need it and you kind of feel like it's a waste, but it's better to have the option than to not, I think, personally. Holy Avenger, your Holy Power generation is tripled for 20 seconds. Could be good for Avenging Wrath and if you try to push that damage, burst damage for some reason, but I wouldn't see why I'd really take this as an option unless it was kind of that, because it's a 3-minute cooldown. It's quite a long cooldown to justify it, to be honest. And then we have Seraphim, which is basically for 15 seconds you grant yourself 107 haste, critical strike, mastery and versatility. Alright talent, but I think Divine Purpose, being a passive and being consistent, is probably going to outdo those 2. But then we move on to a completely new row of talents once again, where we have Hand of the Protector. Word of Glory's healing increased by the target's missing health on any target, which is quite a solid choice. Consecrated Ground, your consecration is 15% larger and enemies within it have 50% reduced movement speed. It's okay, I suppose, if you try to kite for Mythic Pluses. But also Judgment of Light, it causes the next 25 successful attacks against the target to heal the attacker for 51. It's okay. I think it's out of those 2, to be fair, for which one I kind of want to run. I'd have to see how that one scales, to be fair. But I think Hand of the Protector is probably the stronger choice for a lot of self-sustain and also to throw a nice heal out there if you're taking a lot of damage to a raid member or something like that. So we finish off on the last row and we have Sanctified Wrath, Righteous Protector and Final Stand. During Divine Shield, all targets within 15 yards are taunted. That could be decent for Mythic Plus, and if you try to you're doing a big pull but you know the damage is going to hurt or something like that. Righteous Protector, each holy power spent reduces the remaining cooldown of Avenging Wrath or Guardian of the Ancient Kings by 1 second. That's probably going to be my go-to, to be fair. And Sanctified Wrath, Avenging Wrath lasts 25% longer and causes judgments to generate 2 holy power. Now, that's not too bad, to be fair, and I think Avenging Wrath being like a relatively midpoint cooldown, that could find its way in, but I'm probably just going to have to test it when I get up to the top of the game, to be fair. So that's it for today's video, guys. If you did enjoy the video or you found it informative, please do leave a like, maybe even comment what you want to see next. And if you want to see more tanking guides or tanking reviews for the next expansion, please do subscribe, because that's how you'll be notified. I also do have a Twitch that I stream on quite regularly at the minute. I'll leave that in the description below if you fancy popping on, maybe checking it out, and if you enjoy what you see, giving us a follow, it'd really help. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. Take it easy, have a good day. Bye now.